In writing, it is often difficult to iron out everything and have all the details agree. In one of his biggest hits, Johnny Cash wrote a song about a criminal serving time in prison. Where was he?
I'm stuck in Folsom Prison.
And what did he do to get stuck in Folsom Prison?
But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die.
That line has always bothered me. Folsom Prison is part of the California state prison system. People get sent to Folsom Prison for committing a non-federal crime in California. The subject of the song shot a man in Reno, which is in Nevada. Why is he in a California prison? I shouldn't let it bother me. Cash was trying to capture the feeling of hopelessness of a prisoner. He was not trying to make anyone think he was telling a true story, but it still eats at me. One of my favorite TV programs of all time is Dragnet. I also like listening to old radio episodes of Dragnet. Dragnet was the brainchild of Jack Webb, and one of the things that made the show so enjoyable was Webb's attention to detail. On the radio show, if you heard Joe Friday walking up the steps of City Hall, you knew how many steps there really were at Los Angeles City Hall because Webb made sure that the number of steps you heard matched the number of steps there really were. Once Dragnet was on TV, Webb made sure that the sets used the same kind of ashtrays that were used at the Los Angeles Police Department because he felt that such detail was important to the realism of the show. Of course, there had to be some changes in detail. While a detective may switch details from time to time, he certainly would not do it on a weekly basis.
We were working the day watch out of homicide detail. We were working the day watch out of burglary detail. We were working the day watch out of robbery detail. We were working the day watch out of narcotics detail. We were working the day watch out of bunco detail. We were working the night watch out of juvenile bureau.
I can certainly give Webb dramatic license on that. He wanted there to be variety in the program and to show the different types of investigations in which detectives were involved. I also have to give him kudos for what could almost be an inside joke. 187 is the California Penal Code section for murder. 211 is the California Penal Code section for robbery. Care to guess what details Joe Friday was working in the 187th and 211th episodes of the radio show? As the show went on, Webb would have to use street addresses that did not exist on the street that was named, and he would also do investigations at intersections of streets that did not intersect. And he did this because it was noticed that when locations were named on the show, those locations would become temporary tourist sites. There was one address that was real. It was a real address and was used on a number of occasions. In the first Dragnet Christmas episode, 22 Rifle for Christmas, there was a tragic event that Joe Friday had to investigate.
Then we went over to the crime lab, picked up Lieutenant Lee Jones, and drove out the Arroyo Seco freeway to Collis Avenue. It was an average neighborhood. Number 4656 was a one-story green stucco residence.
The family must have felt they had to move to another area because someone else lived at that address in future episodes.
It was 1:15 p.m. when I got to 4656 Collis Avenue. The front door.
Is that you, Joseph?
Yeah, Ma, it's me.
I have no problem with that. After all, who's going to remember such a thing months later? It is often difficult to compare a Dragnet episode with the details of a real case. Many of the cases on Dragnet were not sensational, so you would have little chance of finding any information on them. Even if you could find out the basic details of a case, it may still be hard to find out the real details many years later. For example, the Dragnet episode from August 24, 1950, The Big Chance, was a dramatization of the September 1946 murder of California Highway Patrol Officer Stephen Sodell, whose abandoned patrol car was found by the side of the road. There's enough information in the episode to get the basics, but it's still hard to find much information on the case. Another Dragnet episode, The Big Thank You from March 9, 1950, is one of the few episodes where you can find out more details of the case. The story is about a woman who was paroled after a murder conviction due to the efforts of another woman. How does the parolee thank her savior? She murders her, of course. In the end, we are told that the killer is given the death penalty for her crime. Considering that the state of California had only executed 4 women in its history by 1950, it was rather easy to find out that the episode was a dramatization of the Louise Pete case. The details in Dragnet were a bit different than the details of the Pete case, but they obviously were the same case. Other Dragnet episodes can be compared in another way.
The only thing I ever wanted in my life. She wouldn't let me have it. The building. Robert A. Marston building. For professional men.
You mean your wife wouldn't give you the money for it? That's why you quarreled, is that it?
I tried to tell her. It was one fight after another. She didn't know how much it meant to me.
And that's why you killed her, huh?
That was from June 14th, 1951, in an episode called The Big Building. Where have I heard that case before?
Dr. Thornton had recently paid a bonding company $150,000 on a 12-story office building that he's been planning to build for some time. Now, we've traced every source of the man's income. The only place that money could have come from was from Mrs. Thornton.
That was from a syndicated program called Police Headquarters from 1932 in an episode called Conscience, a.k.a. Dr. Thornton's wife disappears. As was the Dragnet radio episode, it was the story of a dentist who kills his rich wife to get the money to build a professional building in downtown Los Angeles. I'm willing to give Jack Webb a pass on minor details that no one would remember from one week to another. Sometimes, however, the inconsistencies just slap you across the eardrum. Let's look at the Dragnet episode from December 15th, 1949, the Garbage Chute Murder. In some of the early episodes, Hal Gibney, the announcer, would give the year as well as the month and the day of a trial.
On April 2nd, 1947, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 81, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
So here we are. It's December 15th, 1949. The trial was held on April 22nd, 1947, or a little over 2.5 years ago. What were the results of that trial?
Last Friday morning, after a delay of 5 years, Martin Eric Swanson was executed in the lethal gas chamber at the state penitentiary.
So the criminal was executed last Friday. Well, if today is December 15th, 1949, that's a Thursday, so the previous Friday would have been December 9th. The murder was executed after a delay of 5 years. I don't know what calendar they were using, but the period of time from April 22nd, 1947 to December 9th, 1949 is not 5 years according to any calendar I know. How could they let that happen? It should have jumped right off the pages of the script. Sometimes it seems as though the production staff throws so much information around that they lose track of it all. On the June 22nd, 1952 episode, Dragnet aired an episode called The Big Roll. In that episode, a man is kidnapped and is driven off in his car. The police had no idea who the man was until his car was found.
The white slip attached to the steering post showed the car was registered to a Kenneth L. Gorman at a Canal Street address. Before Frank and I left the scene, we got a report that approximately 20 minutes prior to the time the gray sedan had been located, another car had been stolen. It was a maroon, late model Club Coupe, license 7Tom 7972.
So, they find the man's car and they identify who he was. Then they discover that another car was stolen from the neighborhood where the kidnap victim's car was found, and the license number of the second car was 7T7972. Then they go to see the wife of the kidnapped man. Now listen to Friday confirm the license number of her husband's car.
You and your husband own a car, Mrs. Gorman?
Yes, we do. My husband has it right now. Why?
What kind of a car is it, ma'am?
A 49 Chevy sedan.
Gray color, four-door?
Yes.
License number 7T7972.
I understand how difficult it is to get everything perfect, but I think some details are more important than having the sound effects match the number of steps at City Hall.